All right. Let me get a sip of my Wawa, and then we can start this episode.
Your Wawa?
Yeah, I don't know what Wawa is. I think it's a restaurant or something.
Zach, I'm so disappointed.
That was funnier when we said it before the episode started, but we're going to go right into it. Welcome back to Table Talk Friday. My name is Zach, and I'm joined by my one best friend, Andrew Romano, as Seth Pittman is still away at boot camp. How are you doing today, Drew? And I know this is odd that we're just jumping right into the everything, but we've got a lot to cover in this episode, so.
Heck yeah, lots to talk about. I'm doing pretty good today, Zach. I had a bag of chips, I had 3 donuts, 2 cupcakes, and a little bit of water today, and that's all of the food I've consumed. So I'm sugared up and ready to go with no actual nutrition in me.
Oh, I thought that was just breakfast.
We'll
that was my breakfast.
Brunch. We'll call it the brunch.
Yeah, also doing great, and I just feel so stupid because the last episode that we recorded the same day that they dropped this news about the new One D&D Unearthed Arcana, which is what we're talking about today. They dropped that news, and it's like our heads were in the sand because we didn't realize that at all. We were talking about guns instead. So now this week we're finally getting to the news, which for you all it's probably going to be coming out even later. So. We'll strike the iron while it's lukewarm. But in any case, I'm super excited because this time, they've been teasing it for a while. Druids and Paladins are finally getting their moment to shine. And let me just be upfront. The word Druid and Paladin, Unearthed Arcana just makes me so excited because I love both of these classes. So I was super excited. I think reading through it, We'll set the expectation. My opinions are mostly positive, but I do have some concerns, and we'll get into them as we get into them.
I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation because clearly Zach has played Druid and Paladin a number of times in his day. I've played Druid once or maybe twice, Paladin one single time where I didn't even have a subclass. So I have relatively little experience and actual field, we'll call it field experience, right? Actually playtesting these things at the table. And while this is some of your favorite options and you have positive thoughts, I do have a couple negative thoughts about this experience. So I feel like we might be the yin and yang here. This could be good. We might get some interesting some conversation here. So if you had to pick one, Zach, I'm going to put you right into the hot seat. Right? If 2 of these favorite classes of yours, if you had to pick just one to talk about, to play, to just jump right into at the table, which one would you pick?
Well, so here's always been my opinion since I started playing D&D. Paladin is the one that I gravitate to the most. I love the flavor of the Paladin. I think the everything about the Paladin just is exciting. It's fun to me. But Druid is the one that I was never super excited about, but I always have a blast playing a Druid. So I think Druid is kind of like my sleeper favorite class because I've never had an experience playing a Druid and felt like I'm not doing enough. I don't have enough things that I can be doing. As far as the 2014 Player's Handbook classes, I feel like the Druid is right out of the box. Just it's as interesting as a multi-class because you have so many different, you've got your spell casting, you've got spells that can supplement you as a martial character, but really the main thing is your wild shape, which makes you a spellcaster who's also as tanky as a barbarian, and depending on what subclass you go and so there's just a lot of really interesting options that Druids get that seem very unique and special to them. And so what I'll say here is it seems like they've sort of reined that in just a little bit. Druids are still super unique, but they are, it seems like they're trying really hard to make this arbitrary grouping work. So now we'll see with the Druid and also the Paladin. Both are a lot more cleric-y than before, which, Drew, personally, I think I would have imagined this would have been a good thing for you since you love the cleric so much.
And that that's true, and maybe I'll hear some more stuff or think about some points that I haven't thought of previously here. Maybe they're a little more supportive than I initially thought. I don't know. I think all of these changes that we're going to jump into in here in just a moment, they've confused me just a little bit. I agree that the Druid as is right now is very interesting. They do have a lot of options, but I feel like I'm constantly conflicted playing it. With my limited experience with Druids, I'm constantly conflicted with what I should be doing. Like, what's the most optimal thing? What is a good option here? What's a good spell? Or should I be wild shaping? Should I use my companion?
Yeah, so that's a very valid point, and I think that's probably my biggest issue with the Druid as well is the dichotomy: do I wild shape right now, or do I stay in my human form? Because while you're in your primary form, you've got access to all your spells and shit. But then when you wild shape, you lose all that. What the cool thing that they've done here is they've very much made it, at least especially for the Circle of the Moon Druid, they've made it very easy for you to still do most of the things that you want to be doing in your human form in your animal form, or later on they give you the ability to switch between them on the fly, so you can say, oh, well, I really, I want to still be a bird, but I need to cast a spell really quick. Let me shift out, and then my next turn I'll shift right back, and that doesn't cost an extra wild shape. So anyway, getting into everything about the Druid, the first big change that they've made is at first level, they now get something that's called Channel Nature. And so this feature is, immediately comes to mind Channel Divinity, which is what the cleric gets, and it's very much... That's how they're laying it out. It works very much like how they described the cleric's channel divinity in the previous Unearthed Arcana. The difference is this: the main feature of this is wild shape. So at first level, the druid gets access to, I believe you get 2 channel nature uses, and then cool thing about this, and this goes for the channel divinity for the paladin as well. Once we get there, and probably the cleric. I don't remember if this is how it worked there, but you get 1 use of your channel nature back on a short rest, and then you get all uses back on a long rest. So it sort of makes it so that you can't get all the way back up to full, especially once you start, I believe they cap at 4 total uses. So you get a little bit back on a short rest, which is much more satisfying than getting nothing, which is what the druids typically get. So I'm a big fan of that change, but... I think that's handy. So in any case, channel nature, at first level, you can use it to wild shape. And so they've completely overhauled the way wild shape works here. In the 2014 Player's Handbook, they basically said, I don't know, ask your DM. Because
Figure it out.
Yeah, you get to transform into X amount of creatures, but you have to be a beast of a certain CR, and there's none. There are a few options in the back of the Player's Handbook for things that you might be able to transform into, but they're not that good. And so, you go to your DM and you say, "Hey, what other things can I transform into?" And then you get into the monster manual, and you just get way too many options. And so it becomes, all right, well, which one of these are actually good? And then it becomes really difficult with the decision paralysis. Okay, I guess I could be a dire wolf, but I really want that multi-attack from being a brown bear, so I guess I'll be a brown bear, and I'll only ever be a brown bear.
Which I find it super interesting that they are pulling away from that, which I get it was way overcomplicated, for sure. Playing a druid right now in what we're calling a 6-off, a little short campaign, and I absolutely hate trying to prep all of these things that I'm going to be transforming into or summoning or whatever it may be before the session, because there's just too many things. There's nowhere to put them on your character sheet. We've been playing over Roll20 for the last couple weeks, and so what I do is I just open extra tabs on my laptop so that I have, a wolf on one and a giant snake on the next, or a bear of some sort, right? So all these different options. Way overcomplicated, but in the same sense, I did love it. I loved that I could nitpick which thing I was going to turn into to get the optimal abilities for that situation, right? Turning into a wolf to make sure that I could knock people prone and maybe get some pack tactics. Maybe I had advantage on perception checks with my smell. That was interesting. You go to the DM and go, can I make a perception check, but with my nose? And it was super weird. It was just something a little different that made it more unique. So now as we're leaning into less options but more simplicity, I do feel more at ease, but a little lost almost, because I feel like the Druids have lost a good bit of their options and their resources to use in combat and outside.
Well, yeah. So what we're talking about, instead of choosing a beast now, they give you 3 options, which are very similar to the Beastmaster Rangers revised options from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Now you can choose to transform into either a beast of the land, or an animal of the land, animal of the sea, or animal of the sky. And so you, at first level, you only have access to animal of the land, and as you level up, you get access to these other options. And so, generally speaking, the animal can be whatever you want it to be. So, as an animal of the land, you can be small, medium, or large, or any of them. You can be small, medium, or large, and you get to define what your creature looks like. So, what I love about this is it pulls out the argument that everyone's had. Anyone who's ever played a druid knows. You want to play something cool. You want to have some cool transformation into something. Maybe you find a dinosaur and you're like, I really want to turn into this dinosaur. And your DM says, have you ever seen a dinosaur? Do you know what that animal looks like? Is that local to where you're from? That doesn't make any sense.
Spit on it.
Go back to direwolf. So now you get the empirical freedom to say, no, DM, I want to be an owlbear. And this is what it looks like, and it has the same stats as anything else, and you're allowed to. And I will say, I feel like this decision is interestingly timed because of the owlbear character who might be appearing in the new Dungeons and Dragons movie. So I feel like they probably said, "Oh, that's a cool idea. We want people to be able to do that." So
I really love the idea that someone was watching the trailer for this upcoming movie, saw this really cool transformation into this bear. It's like, oh, you could do that in your game? And the developers were like, well, no. But now you can.
Yeah, exactly.
They just changed it on the fly.
So I'm super into that. And so the one drawback to this, besides you don't get the sort of the number crunchiness of, all right, well, let me pick the optimal animal. The other downside is no longer when you wild shape do you gain the extra hit points of that creature, and then when you revert back to your form after you drop to 0 in your animal form, you don't keep your druid hit points on top of that. It's all the same. So when you wild shape into a direwolf, you still have the same hit points that you had before you wild shaped, and when you drop to 0, you still lose that form, and you fall unconscious, and you're dying. So
it's an interesting scenario, because I feel like when I want to wild shape, right, that's one of the biggest reasons, is because I want to tank some hits for my allies. I want to get in there, get a couple bites off, not worry about necessarily getting beat on. That's sort of my shield, my little pool of hit points that I use. Definitely one of the biggest positives to wild shaping. And so now that they pulled it away, again, I'm coming back to this theming of I'm a little lost with the druids. Like, I feel like that's what I was hoping for. And so now, yes, you're absolutely right. We have all these, really cool options for, flavor. You could be any type of animal you want for the most part, as long as it fits in with this chart, right? That gives you a number of different abilities and things like that. But it still feels like it's just not as good. I wouldn't say, I don't know if this is like a full nerf. I'm not going to say we're nerfing the druids into the ground or anything like that. But I'm very confused still. I want my hit points back. I want my pool. If I'm going to transform into some sort of animal to get into this fight, which, I'm not a fighter by any means. I don't expect to be doing, fighter damage. And for the most part, for what I could tell in this chart, you're not doing fighter damage, which is A-okay. That's fine. You're a full caster. I don't want to be doing that kind of damage, But I do get a bit confused with what's my reasoning for wild shaping. It feels very utility to me, which is cool, but if it's utility, you can't swap in and out right away. So if you can't swap in and out and you're locking yourself into this utility space, it feels like you're locking yourself down a lot. Like, I feel like I'm really anchoring myself, Well,
what I'll say about that is it seems to me like you get to choose your mode. Like, I'm going into melee mode. I'm going into spellcasting mode. So, like, in my standard form, the main thing that I benefit from is I get access to all my spells. I can do whatever. But then once I transform, I do, and I will say, I think that you're not giving them enough credit. Yes, the amount of damage that you're doing at base, as any druid, might not be the same as a fighter. But what's really cool about these new animal forms is all of your shit goes off of your wisdom mod. So now, druid was sort of the class that you could play in base 5e with no stats, because as long as you're a Circle of the Moon, you can wild shape into those animals, and you're just going off of their physical stats, and that actually works really well. But here, now your armor class and your strength and your dex are based on your wisdom. So your to hit modifier and your damage, that's pretty beefy. If you've got a +5 to wisdom at low enough level, now you've got a +7 to hit, 1d8 plus wisdom mod damage that you get to add, and then at 5th level they get extra attack in their animal form. So you basically do kind of get the fighter option. So to your point, you're not as competent as a fighter. Your AC is only 10 plus your wisdom mod. So you may be putting yourself at risk there in some situations, but I just can't wait to see them release the monk and have this synergize so well, because this is going to be the best multi-class is turn into the Kung Fu Panda. Which I really,
that would be sick.
In the Christmas one-off, I made sort of like a Kung Fu Panda adjacent character. I really wish I held off, because this is going to be awesome.
I know we've mentioned it very, very briefly before, where we totally shat upon the way the 4 elements monk. That would be definitely the coolest option for being a druid monk. I feel like that's the way to do it right there. If you're going to go full avatar or full nature, that's it. That's your spiritual monk druid. Like, oh, that'd be so, just swapping back and forth in combat. Oh, I would love that. But so I do want to address this, the ability scores you get, right? Because I feel like I'm in a therapy session right now. I feel like I need to talk through this. I'm like hurting, but I'm excited at the same sense.
Okay.
I love that they simpled it down to you get basically for the most part your own scores while you're transforming, right? And especially the wisdom mod in place of your strength or dexterity, depending on your form, because it really makes sure that you're still consistent with your damage. You're not really getting nerfed too bad when you wild shape, right? You're still maintaining yourself, your own stats, your own abilities for the most part, while still getting to be a wolf or a panda or whatever you want to be.
Right. Exactly. And sorry to cut you off, but
No,
I think that this is exciting because sort of the player's handbook druid, they have their wild shape up until like 7th level, and then they graduate to polymorph and never want a wild shape ever again because their wild shape forms are so weak. I feel like this is a version of the druid that scales well into high level because you have, all right, yeah, now I want to turn into a giant eagle and then shift out of that and then back into it. And while I'm in my giant eagle form, I've got a competent armor class. I've got competent damage that I'm dealing that scales up to my current level. So I feel like it's kind of cool what they're doing here. But to your point, I think at base these forms aren't, again, they're not. You're not as powerful as the fighter in melee, but there are ways to sort of get closer to that. Especially with the Circle of the Moon, which we'll talk about in a bit.
And maybe that's where I'm, maybe that's where I'm confused, or I'm in a state where I'm desiring more here, because I want to know with all of the groups we've seen so far. We saw the experts, we saw the mages, the casters of some sort. We've seen just one subclass, right? I want to see more. I need to see what these other druids could do before I get my final opinion on how good this playtest is going to be, right? Back to being confused and a little bit of a hypocrite here, because I like these scores, right? I like that you could use your own scores. It doesn't get too complicated. It takes away some of the complexity of it, right? But in the same sense, I'm a guy that's all about flavor, right? If I could take an option and be less powerful, but it's way more flavorful, I will do it 100%, right? Now I'm going to miss the idea that, I wild shape into a bee. And like, am I dumb? Do I know my name? Do I know where my friends are? That's kind of the fun part, though. I kind of like that.
That's when you polymorph into a bee, though. When you're a druid and you turn into a bee, you retain all of your mental stats, which is it's still the same here. You keep all of your and constitution as well, but intelligence, wisdom, charisma stays your own, which again, cool, makes it makes the wild shape really like a better version of polymorph in some sense, but of course you don't get all those extra hit points.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on, and I just really want to feel that flavor with the druids. I really want to be a dumb bee, and I also want to go in and out of my shapes, but I also want more shapes, but also there's too many shapes, so I need less. So I don't know where I fall right now, and I apologize to all the listeners if I'm jumping around a little bit on this druid, but there's so much going on right here, and I feel like it all connects and sort of synergizes with one another, and they bring up other topics. Like we very briefly touched on the channel nature, right? Which I do like the channel nature. It brings it very much so into that priest group, right? Where you have the channel divinities of the paladins and the clerics, right? But then you jump right into these wild shapes, and we've already brought up a whole bunch of other little tweaks and abilities that they get later on, like shaping in and out, and haven't touched on tiny creatures. There's a lot going on here, and it may be complex and sound confusing at first glance because I feel like druids have always sort of been that way. You know, when you play a druid, you're not sure what stats you have, as is it now in the player handbook. You're not kind of sure what stats you have. You're not sure what you're going to shape into. You don't know what spells you have because you're a full caster. You have all these different spells. You can prepare all of them every single day, and you have to plan for that. You know, there's a lot that goes into this class. So if you are reading through this or you're listening to videos online, make sure you're really taking your time with this. I definitely had to, and I'm still doing it right now as I'm talking through it in my therapy session. But there's a lot, and I'm excited to see further tweaks, just a little bit. And I hate to say I'm waiting for further tweaks. We just had all these tweaks, right? But I want a little more, I don't know, reassurance, right?
Yeah, you know, I really just want to see it in action is the thing, because the fact that your wild shape doesn't by default give you more hit points, that might be a deal breaker, because you only have a D8 hit die. So putting yourself up in that range, also with a max of 15 AC, that might be a problem. So we'll have to see. But anyway, just sort of shotgun through some of the other features that they've added for the druid. So other things you can do with your channel nature. At second level, you get Nature's Aid. So you get your Healing Blossoms, which as an action, you can expend one use of your channel nature, choose a point within 30 feet of you, and you get a 10-foot radius sphere where you can divvy out a number of hit points. I believe you roll a number of d4s equal to your wisdom mod, and then you divvy out those hit points to any creatures within that space as you see fit. So it's sort of like a lay on hands adjacent feature. It's a little more powerful, it feels like to me, but it's also expending a use of your channel nature, so definitely makes sense. I like it just for the simple fact that the druid is also a healer, so I like that they have that baked in, especially since the cleric also got their baked in healing option. So I'm a fan of that. And then they have Wild Companion, which is it's actually coming back from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. They gave druids the option to expend one use of their wild shape to cast Find Familiar instead. Now you can expend one use of your channel nature and you get to cast Find Familiar, which also we may get to it, we may not, but they have upgraded Find Familiar in a number of ways to where it does seem. I'm not someone who's used Find Familiar a lot, but it seems a little bit more enticing now in the newer version. But maybe I'm just misremembering the rules.
Well, I do want to dig into some of their spells more. But just to make sure we get all the thoughts, because I find these two things actually especially interesting. To your point, I think it's very important that druids do have that healing factor baked in, right? They have that. something with their base kit that allows them to heal because they're part of the priest class. They need to be able to heal beyond just cure wounds, right? I think that's extremely important.
Right, and that's sort of like the mark of a shitty druid. I mean, not to be the toxic player at the group, but but I always sort of like give someone side eye when they're playing a druid and they didn't bring any healing. Which this is my D&D trauma, but the first campaign I ever played, we were a party of 2 rogues, a paladin, and a druid, and the druid didn't bring any healing spells, so I was our healer, and I also died. Thanks, Theron.
To be fair, I feel like, not to dismiss your trauma, Zach, it's very real. I feel like it's the same way with a lot of these other classes, right? If you're a class that can have cure wounds and you didn't take it, why? Take Cure Wounds. You need to have it. It's mentioned as you scroll farther down this druid list, and they give you, your kind of the spells you should take, right? The possible prepared spell options, right? You could do these if you want to do like a little quick build. They do basically tell you to take Cure Wounds, which I think is perfectly doable. I still don't know how I feel after so many playtests of them telling me how many or what spells I should take, because I'm an adult and I can pick my own spells. I don't need you telling me to take Cure Wounds. I can do it on my own.
Well, now that I'm scrolling through here, do they have the spells per level that you should take as a druid? I'm pretty sure they did away with that.
So they didn't do it like last time with the mages. What they did do was...
Well, just the cleric. We haven't gotten to...
Oh, that's right, not the mages.
Yeah, but also ranger and bard had the same treatment
That's true. So they didn't do it as in-depth, but they do still give you that preference. They actually first tell you to take these spells and then say, or you could pick your own, which I think is a little odd, but, we'll talk about that in the next playtest, the playtest after that, and the one after that.
Yeah, I'll say that I'm a big fan of them not giving me the full level breakdown of take this spell at this level. I feel like that sucks all the fun out of it, and if you give a player that option, they'll probably go down through the list and do exactly as you say, but those aren't like optimal spells to take necessarily. And so a player who does that versus a player who doesn't, I feel like the player who does is going to feel like they got gypped and immediately want to change all their, which, maybe that's not a terrible thing to have them uncover on their own is, maybe I should make my own decisions, but I feel like there's no need to have it there.
Agreed. And before we move on, I just want to give quick thoughts on the Healing Blossom. Again, I'm a little confused because it sounds really good, but also sounds kind of bad, and I'm not sure where to place it. It, to me, feels like a mix between like a healing spirit and what is it? Oh gosh, the
Wither and Bloom.
Wither and Bloom, as well as that other. Oh gosh, what is it? The spell you move it around and it heals people, but it's like a totem. It's like healing.
That's Healing Spirit.
Healing Word. That's what I was trying to think of. Healing Word, Healing Spirit, and Wither and Bloom. It feels like a mix of the three of them because it's got like a little bit of an AoE, but the healing's not very good. But it's also just enough to get people up if you need to because it's AoE and you're not really using your spell slots to do it because it's baked into your class. So it's good, but it's bad. But I'm not quite sure where I need to play test it. I have to use it to see exactly how it feels.
Yeah, I will say this is one feature, and also the Wild Companion. I feel like these are things that they're okay at second level, but they're not going to scale up so powerfully, I guess. So. It seems intentional in the design here, but they're really making the ideal reasons that you would multi-class into a different class sort of they're pushing those away from first and second level. You have to get to third level to get your subclass, and that's where a lot of the cool things start to come in. So, previously you could subclass or multi-class for a druid and just do a 2-level dip, get your wild shape and your circle, but now you gotta go through an extra hassle. So I'll live, but I do love multiclassing. So
no, that's fair. That's fair. And just to push the idea of sticking the same class for a little while, going back to the channel natures that they have, they're actually going to go back and redo the cleric. I don't know if you saw that in the text. They're redoing it so it's not proficiency bonus anymore, which is good. I don't think anyone should be able to dip into a cleric and all of a sudden get 5 channel divinities at any given level. It seems a little busted. But also, I don't know if you've seen the scaling of the channel natures. It seems very strange to me. Like, there's a couple levels where you have 2, there's a few where you have 3, and then starting at level 9 all the way to 20, you have 4 of them.
No, so the way that they did it is it just levels up like a proficiency bonus. So you get 3 at 5th level. You get 4 at 9th level. But then they wanted 4 to be the cap, so it just stops there.
It feels weird. I don't know. I feel like they should space it out more.
I feel like if we're maybe 6 total channel divinities was too much at max, but like maybe like 5. We give them one more a little bit later on. It's not going to break anything if you're such a high level, I feel like. But
that's where it gets interesting though, because I feel like if you're a cleric, 6 channel divinities is too much. I think it's too strong. But if you're a druid and we're looking at channel natures the same way, I don't think that's too busted. But in the same sense, I don't think you're wild shaping 6 times a day at any given point, you know?
And to your point, Channel Divinity is very powerful because it's based on your subclass. The thing that we haven't seen here is the wild shape features that have also been historically based on the subclass, especially like, with the things that came up in Tasha's. So I feel like this is probably going to balance out when we see things like, Circle of Spores or Circle of Wildfire. If those things come back, it'll probably play out a little bit different. But anyway, we're harping a little too much on the details here. Just to quickly run through the rest, we've talked about a lot of this in passing. So at 5th level, you get Might of the Land, which is where you get your multi-attack for your wild shapes, and then you can also you get a climb speed in your wild shapes,
which I think is important for Animal of the Land.
Yep. 7th level, you get your aquatic form, so now you can finally transform into your aquatic stuff. I feel like in the player's handbook that was unlocked at like 6th level maybe, and then flying was at 8th level. Is that right?
Did they have all the different? It gets weird because again, the way it was described in the player's handbook is it was sort of this one little paragraph that you had of kind of how wild shaping works. While I feel like with this new material, it's much more fleshed out on these different levels. So. Again, very confusing of how it's changed per se, but I do feel like they've worded it better as far as you get this at this level, you get water at this level, and then air at 9.
Yeah, in any case, you get water at 7th, which I feel is kind of high for it. But we're moving things around. It doesn't bother me that much. I've never seen a druid use an aquatic form, not even once. So
no, it's just okay. I mean, honestly, the sea is just waiting for the air form. To be perfectly honest, there's not a whole lot where you're going to use the sea.
If anything, I would kind of like the ability, maybe if you're like a Triton or you're a sea elf or you're a creature that has a they can breathe underwater, then that transfers over to your initial. The wild shape.
Oh, that'd be kind of neat, actually.
Maybe that's asking for too much, though. But in any case, it just feels weird that you could turn yourself into a squirrel and drown yourself, even though you're capable of breathing underwater. Though I guess if you turn yourself into a squirrel, the squirrel doesn't have gills anymore.
I guess you maybe should transform into a squirrel then.
Yeah, fair enough.
To be perfectly honest.
And then as you said, at 9th level, you get your aerial form. They all have little benefits and drawbacks, so even once you get access to the aerial form, that's probably not the thing you're going to be using all the time. It's got lower AC and it does less damage, but you do get a 40-foot fly speed, and the dark vision also increases through the different forms too, which I thought was cool. It makes sense that a land animal wouldn't need to see further than 60 feet, but an underwater animal, they definitely need like at least 90 feet of dark vision.
Definitely one of the better aspects of the sea animal, I think, is having that super dark vision,
Yeah, and then animal of the sky, you get 120 feet, which makes sense as, like an owl you would see, far out in the distance because you're flying up so high. So it's super cool, super flavorful. At 11th level, you get the ability to turn into a tiny critter, which I think it's funny that they're calling this out here. It feels like the designers slapping us on the wrist and saying, no, you weren't supposed to do that this whole time. But in the player's handbook, there's nothing that says you can't turn into like an ant. There just aren't like stat blocks for individual insects like that. So they're really trying to insist that you don't. But here, now you can. And so when you turn into a tiny creature, or when you wild shape, you can decide to be tiny. If you do so, you can stay in that form no longer than 10 minutes, and the damage you deal in that form is halved. That still feels pretty good for, like, being an ant, though.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think the strength of this is still here. To your point, they are definitely slapping us on the wrist. They're giving us that quit being a fly and exploring the entire dungeon, right? For your teammates who, you've seen all the traps, you could just tell everybody where it's all at, right? People were definitely using it as a busted thing. I would consider it almost like an exploit sort of a system because, again, there's not a stat block for ants or flies or spiders. But clearly, if it's based off a CR system like it was previously, clearly an ant is like a 0. There's no way. You're doing
exactly.
Maybe 1 point of damage, to which I think it's funny that they even mentioned the halved halved damage, because when I think tiny critters, which what they're really addressing is those extremely small things, you're not doing any damage, period. Like maybe 1. So what, half of a damage you're going to do? Great.
Yeah, honestly, I want this to be more powerful, though. Like, I want your AC to increase by 5 as well or some shit.
Oh,
and then
cool.
you can be you multi-class monk, and then you get to be the mantis from Kung Fu Panda, which would be awesome.
That's actually a really cool idea. I love that. You could be like a little shadow monk, maybe.
Yeah.
And you'd be a tiny little ant. You're just teleported with like a super stealth insect.
Or
that would be insane.
It's the perfect Ant-Man build. I'm a man, and now I'm an ant.
That would be actually a fun one-off. I kind of want to do that. What's the new one? Quantum Mania or something like that?
Yeah.
We'll have to do that.
Dungeons and Dragons, Quantum Mania.
But yeah, so that's a thing. It's fine. I don't know necessarily if I agree with it being 11th level for a potential thing you might be able to do occasionally. It's fine. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm of two minds about it because on the one hand, I kind of feel like just let me be tiny at first level because that's also a really fun multi-class shenanigans to get up to. You go rogue and then you go druid to get that extra, and you're just unstoppable at stealth. But
completely agree. Jumping into 13th level, the alternating forms. Basically, it gives you it's the concept that you can swap in and out of your wild shape without expending your wild shapes, right? So you can use a bonus action, and as long as you turn back within the next minute, you could still maintain that without burning the extra charge. I love this. I think this is great. Very similar mindset of the last one, Tiny Critters. I almost feel like this should just be base kit. I don't know. I know it's a little strong. Maybe even a nerfed version. Maybe I don't know. Maybe just you could swap back and forth with less time or something. Maybe it shortens the full duration of your wild shape. Something like that, right? But I want to swap in and out. To your point, I want to be the Kung Fu Panda. I want to swap into a wolf, and then there's a door. I want to turn back and open it and then go back into my wolf form, Now, you lock yourself in as a bear, which you feel super cool, but then as soon as there's any sort of obstacle that a bear can't handle, you need your buddies to do it. And it's like, well, I just want to turn back for a second.
I would argue that there is no obstacle a bear can't handle.
to be fair, yeah.
Have you seen the ads for that movie Cocaine Bear?
Oh my gosh. Can I transform into a cocaine bear?
I'm sure you could.
It's just like a raged out brown bear, I would say. It's under the rage effect.
Yeah, no, so that's when you multi-class and you go barbarian.
Oh, the totem. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah, to your point, I think 13th level is a little high for it, but really all you're saving is the extra resources and the fact that you do get a use of your channel nature back on a short rest does soften the blow a little bit.
That's true. Again, I feel like you're not using it a whole lot, and I don't want to waste my charges turning back to a person for a full 30 seconds to go back.
That's true.
But I understand they do give you a number of uses, so I think it's reasonable. It's reasonable.
Another thing that they do to save your uses, give you the best bang for your buck for your channel nature, is 15th level. You get Wild Resurgence. Anytime you wild shape, you automatically do your Healing Blossoms as a part of that channel nature. So now you never have to spend another channel nature on Healing Blossoms alone when you feel like you should have wild shaped. Now you just do them both at once. I really like that. Seems a little
weird.
Well, because Healing Blossoms doesn't scale up, besides that with just your Wisdom mod, it feels like it's probably not as powerful as it should be for being a 15th level feature. But I don't know where else to put it.
I mean, to be fair, you're not using the extra charge, so I think that kind of healing in an area of effect is pretty sick. You can literally just jump into the fray of combat and then pick up one of your teammates with the same action to wild shape, bonus action, whatever it is, whatever it is that you use to wild shape.
It's an action, and then
so as your action, you can still move along and you can still do things for your teammates, which I think is great. But just I don't like that it feels like it's taking away one of your main channel nature abilities, because you have the choice of doing one of the three, right? You can get the familiar, you could wild shape, or you can use healing blossom. So at 15th level, you getting this ability, you're never going to use healing blossom again. So you now only have two options, which feels odd but strong. And again, confused. not sure where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes you just don't want to transform, and if that's the case, then you still healing blossom. But I like that it's there. I kind of wish that it came earlier, but I can't justify moving any of these other things to different levels. So like maybe it shares the space with 5th level, but you get those massive buffs to your wild shape. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe a different sort of scaling option. I'm not sure, but jumping ahead just a little bit into 17th level, definitely a cool one. This one I'm very excited about. This one is very interesting, very neat. You can cast spells in any wild shape form. While in such a form, you can perform somatic and verbal components, blah, blah, blah. Basically, you can't use material components. No, you don't need to provide free material components.
Yes, you just don't need them.
Yeah, but you can't cast spells that require a material component of value. So like Revivify, you can't do.
Which is where I again, confused. I'm confused because it's very exciting that you can cast spells while in wild shape. I don't think that was something you could do before, unless I've missed something or a subclass. That's very cool, because that's the biggest con to being in your wild shape, is not be able to cast your spells, and you're a full caster. So you want to cast those really cool spells. You want to be concentrating on things, right? But now, again, you have that weird restriction on spells. As soon as you get into the somatic, material, verbal, it gets weird, because then you have to look up what spell you're using, and are there material components, or is it somatic? Can you use that spell anymore?
Well, the only thing that you have to worry about is whether or not it costs anything, and that's true for casting any spells. I think that's unfounded. This seems like an awesome feature to me, and it sounds like the only reason they don't want you using something that costs something is because then you have to explain how your druid pulls a diamond out of his ass or something.
But I love the idea that that's how Resurrection or Revivify works. Just like the wolf walks up to your friend and just bites him with healing teeth, and he just wakes up like, what did you do as a wolf? I have to know how you resurrected this person from the dead. Oh goodness.
Yeah, and then 18th level, their capstone feature, whenever you roll initiative, you gain 1 use of your channel nature. That's fine. You also get it back on a short rest. It was cooler when you only had 2 wild shapes. And then in addition, the primal magic that you wield causes you to age more slowly. For every 10 years that pass, your body ages only 1 year. Cool.
I'm a huge fan. I like the flavor of the monks and the druids, where they they don't age, or they don't have to eat, and that kind of. It makes you feel a little more than human. It makes you feel like a real hero. Something very different from everyone else in the party or the world that you're in.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that. Again, it's cool. It's just not as powerful as some other capstone features. I kind of want that to come earlier. Because if my character's getting to 18th level, I don't know how much longer their life is going to be, or at least their adventuring life, It's not going to matter for the course of the story, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, good capstone? No, I don't think so. But fun.
But, yeah,
very
really
flavorful.
Cool. Yeah, very cool, very flavorful. It's not a huge complaint, and I don't know what they would have replaced it with. They would have had to make some shit up.
I'm not sure. Again, maybe possible more tweaks in the future. I'm not sure where they're going to go with it, but let's see. At 20th level, something interesting that they've opened up to other classes, not just the druid, but they've buffed up the epic boons.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So not only the actual epic boons, as far as almost the feats, right? I would consider them a feat. I'm not sure if they're considered feats in the actual book or not, but these extra supernatural abilities that you get, right? They're a little more buffed up. But even better is at 20th level. Not only do you get that epic boon, but also you get an additional ASI, sort of. You get a +2 to any of your scores, but it can go over 20, which is sick. I love that. I think there's only maybe a handful of them. I know barbarians at a certain level get like a 24 or like a 26 strength or something crazy like that.
I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm, that's their capstone ability, is their strength goes up to 24.
Yep.
Do they get that with the epic boon, and then you buff it up to 26 or 27? Because the thing about the epic boon feats is they increase an extra ability score. Like each of them also give you a +1 in something. So there's a way with like a manual of whatever those magic items are that boost your ability scores over 20. There's definitely a way to get to 30 here, and
30 build. Oh, I'm so excited. I wonder if it will it stack with magical items as well, you think? So if I use like a belt of Storm Giant Strength, which I think gives you a 25 or a 26.
It wouldn't stack.
You don't think it would?
Nah, well, I mean, you can do whatever you want. Make your own magic
at 20th
item.
Level, it should. It should at 20th level.
That's fair.
I've earned it
with a belt of Storm Giant Strength, it says specifically your strength becomes 27 if it's not already higher or something like that.
Yeah, I guess. But it's way more fun to think that you do these 30 builds. I want to get to the point where it's like, can I go to 32? I want to be in that predicament. Like, can I do this feasibly?
No, it says your max is 30, but I would love to be in that predicament where I say, hey DM, I would love to increase my stat to 32, but rules as written, I can't go above 30.
Please DM, please 32. It's just 32 strength. It's fine. It's no big deal at all. Oh, okay. So that is the cap for the Druids, right? I think we should. Oh goodness, because we haven't even touched the subclass yet. Oh goodness.
Let's talk about the Circle of the Moon.
Okay.
And we're going a little long here. We might
have to do Paladins next week.
We might do Paladins next time.
But I'm excited for the Paladins, Zach.
I'm really excited to talk about these Paladins. We'll figure it out. In any case,
Circle of the Moon.
Yeah. So Circle of the Moon at 3rd level. You get your subclass. That's the same for all classes now. And they still have their combat wild shape. One cool thing that they've added to this. So first of all, it works just like it did in the player's handbook, where you can use a bonus action to use your wild shape instead of your full action. In addition, you now have abjuration spells. While you're in a wild shape form, you can cast any spell you currently have prepared from the abjuration school, provided the spell doesn't require a material component. Now, I don't know if you've been looking at the spell lists, but they've changed a lot of the spells. Specifically, healing spells are pretty much all now abjuration. So, having this ability, it's weird to think that the Circle of the Moon, which was like the martial combat-y druid in 5e, has sort of become the martial combat-y druid who also heals.
Which is weird. First of all, we're talking about getting this at 3rd level, right? We just talked about the regular druids. They get that you can cast spells at like 15th level. So you're getting like a little piece, a little sliver of that, right? At 3rd level, a little juicy slice of pizza right there. But it's making me think of a very specific situation where, again, we're back to the healing wolf, where it gets healing bites and whatnot. I want the druid to be in a really weird spot where they're a wolf, and they look across the way, and they have healing word, and they see someone down, and they just go, woof. And the person stands up with a couple hit points. Just like how it brings... I've talked about being like a plasmoid, right, in the upcoming campaign, where there's a lot of different things you could do with a body like that, right, where you're just ooze, right? I feel like it's the same thing here. Being a bear, being a wolf, being a monkey, a rat, whatever it may be, being able to cast these spells is so interesting. It's fun. It's going to make your brain think differently as you become this wild shape. It's very exciting. And that's just one spell. That's just one healing spell. There are other spells that are abjuration. I believe, I could be wrong, I think shield is one, although I don't think druids get shield.
No, druids don't get shield, but again, good reasons to multiclass, because you can do this shit in your animal form. I need to see what their new wording is for, or if they change it at all, for mage armor, because could you imagine mage armor on a druid, and you wild shape into your your animal of the land, and now you've got an 18 AC? Oh, that would be really good.
Oh, that would that work?
It probably doesn't.
But I'm gonna say it does, because that would be way fun.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll give them bracers of defense and a ring of protection. Then you got 18.
Oh, we're just using magic items to cheat a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, rules as written, that's never how mage armor worked, because you've got your armor class set is 10 plus your wisdom mod. I'm pretty sure mage armor, it would just make it so that it's, I guess it would still work, because it just changes your AC to be 13 plus your dex, and so in your wild shape form, your dex is your wisdom, and so then your AC could... I think it works.
I think it works at first glance. I'm sure someone will absolutely show us up, and someone will explain it to us afterwards that doesn't work. But you still have to multiclass, because I don't think druids get mage armor.
No, but maybe you get a background feat.
Oh, you're right. The little feats that give you little...
Yeah, Magic Initiate. I think that was a
Oh.
first level feat.
Okay. And with all the new not background. What are they? Goodness, the feats you get in the beginning. What are they called? Background feats now?
Yeah, I think they are background feats.
We'll go with that. We'll say I'm right with background feats. It's more of a reason to take that initiate type of feat, just to get a little flavor, a little something different, or have that really synergy based healing build. I don't know. Who knows? But moving on to elemental wild shape.
Sorry, not to interrupt you. There's one more thing that the combat wild shape gets, and that's you can use an unarmed strike as a bonus action. So that's for all while you're in your wild shape. So in addition to your multi-attack, you also have an unarmed strike that you can do. So as written, it's not the same thing as your bestial strike, which does in your land form, it's a D8 plus your wisdom. It's not the same thing, so it'll be like a basic ass unarmed strike where you do your strength plus your proficiency, and then of course it'll be based off of your animal form. So your wisdom plus your proficiency bonus, and then it'll deal 1 plus your strength. So that is pretty cool. And then you can also use it for shoving or grappling as well, which they have changed the unarmed strike, and this is as good a time to talk about it as any. In this Unearthed Arcana, they've changed it to where in previous versions they had it where if you land a hit, the target is automatically grappled or they're automatically shoved. Now, if you choose to do that, they have to make a save, and it's just not as powerful as I want it to be. So it could be a strength or dex save. They get to choose. And they have to make a saving throw, the DC of 8 plus your strength plus your proficiency bonus. So at max, this DC is 21. At first level, a barbarian could easily get a 21 on all of their athletics checks. And I just, maybe it's broken, maybe it's busted, maybe it's not good to have one type of character that always succeeds all the grapple checks. I mean, Lord knows I'm sick of Sean's characters grappling me all the time.
That is fair. He does grapple everything.
But I don't know. I want to have the option to be that dominant grappler, because if it's always up to chance and it's always based on their save, more often than not, if you're fighting a creature in melee, they probably either have dex saves or strength saves. And I don't know.
I think grappling, I think there's room for improvement, right? I don't like the instantly hit them and grapple them type of vibe. It feels wrong. It's taking away the whole contest. Like, contest me. I want to be the best here. I want to overpower you with my 26 strength.
Exactly. It just seems like, yes, your DC is technically based off of your stuff that you get, but I want a grappler fighting style if this is the case, where you give them disadvantage on their saves against every time you grapple or some shit like that. I think that would fix it for me.
And I know we touched on this very briefly once before. I think there's a time and place for saving throws and all, and I know that the contest is very unique to grappling. There's not a lot of contests in D&D from what I could tell, but I feel like there should be. I want more contests. Maybe not even just with grappling. Maybe with, some sort of counterspell idea where you're magic against magic. Harry Potter versus Voldemort as they're pushing their magic back and forth. I want to see people go at it more using their abilities and their raw scores, right? I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. And it's not just the same saving throw that happens from every other spell and or ability in the game. It's very unique. It's niche, but it's super fun. When you get into a contest, it's always cool. Someone's getting pushed over a cliff, or someone's, you're trying to pull yourself up over out of a hole, and someone's trying to push you down. It's always fun and cinematic, I feel like, when there's that contest happening.
Yeah, it feels like they're sort of trying to step away from the idea of roll-offs, right? Which,
but why? It's so fun.
I see the reasoning, sort of, because you think about it. When are you really rolling off against someone? Almost never. It's almost always when you're interacting with the game and everything that the DM has set up. It's always a saving throw, or it's always a static DC ability check. The only time that you're really ever contesting someone with your rolls is if it's against a player, and there, maybe you could argue it with the DM, like a stealth versus perception, that sort of thing could happen. But even then, as the DM, I have the freedom to say, well, the DC is this, and I don't need to roll for it. But in any case, it seems like we're sort of stepping away from PvP behavior, and grappling is definitely like a big PvP behavior where you say, all right, my strength's bigger than your strength, and then you roll for it,
Give me more PvP. I want a little more. No, I really don't. I don't want a little more PvP, but I do think it's interesting and flavorful when it comes up. And if me grappling my buddy, if it advances the story, then I want to be able to do it.
That shit comes up, and you know what? To his credit, every time Nuth grappled Oswin, we'll say, because that's really what I'm talking about. He put me in my place because Oswin is super overconfident and he's throwing out way too much damage at range. And Nuth gets up close and he says, "Not today."
And it makes you feel like a big dummy, to be fair, when you lose that thing. It's like, oh man, I can't move. This guy's just holding my hair. He's grabbing my shirt. I remember a long time ago, very, very brief story, we played a one-off. It was actually, it might have been the very first one-off I've ever played, where one of the other players, Seth's character, was very strong, and I don't think he had a grappling build per se, but the idea was that there was something on top of a pillar, right? We had to get the thing from on top of the pillar, competing against one another, sort of a PvP situation, and pull it back to the other room through our assigned goals, right? So you had to retrieve. It was like a capture the flag game, but we're all going after the same flag.
Gotcha.
King of the Hill sort of a vibe. So, my character was a rogue, so I sprinted up there, got it faster than anyone else. But when I got to the bottom, Seth's character was so strong. The rule was you had to get the thing through your goal. He literally grappled me and carried me through his goal while I was holding on. It was terrible. I felt like a moron, but it was super cinematic, though. I was like, well, I mean, there's nothing I could do here, but he won fair and square. He was stronger than I. I didn't use my agility to the best of my ability there. I definitely could have been more agile and mobile, but I wasn't. And he overpowered me. That's just how it was. But funny table
that's
grappling.
really funny.
Isn't it?
Was that that was the one that Sean ran, right?
Yes, Sean ran it, and it was the labyrinth with Bahamut, and
okay, yeah,
there was a beholder, and it was a bunch of stuff going on.
I wasn't there for that one.
It was very interesting. It was very fun. But jumping into the next one, which was Elemental Wild Shape. This one is pretty fun. It definitely goes in with this whole combat wild shape, aggressive assault druid sort of a vibe that I'm getting from the Circle of the Moon, right? When you wild shape, you get to pick one of the following element types, right? So you have acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. While you're in the wild shape form, you have resistance to the chosen damage type, and the form's bestial strike can deal damage of that type rather than its normal type. So, first of all, that's sick, flavorful wise. I want to be a phoenix, right? You could be
exactly. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Fiery. You could be like an ice bear, like a tundra, like a polar bear. That would be really sick.
that would be really cool. Or like a lightning boar. Or
lightning boar would be sick. You know, in the movies when there's like those radioactive zones with like the barrels floating stereotypically, I love the idea that you're like the dawn bird, like stepping out of this gross pool and you're an acid duck. And just, that would be really, really fun.
Yeah, I think they threw acid in there because the thing that this is replacing is Circle of the Moon Druids. I don't know if you recall, but they, I think it was at like 11th level, they can wild shape into an elemental. So
that's right.
So they can choose fire elemental, water elemental, earth, or air. And so rather than water, now we got acid, and we've got cold, and we've got lightning and thunder for air, and then fire. You get it.
Okay. So basically, we're getting like a little bit of that flavor from before, a little earlier. It's a little less powerful, obviously, than turning into a full elemental right now, but it does get stronger later. But resistance to an element, I don't think druids had that before.
Nope.
The only thing I can think of is a 14th level star druid has resistance to like bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing. They get like a little mini rage.
Yeah. Maybe. Now that I'm thinking about it, Circle of Spores probably had like necrotic resistance or something, And I think
Oh, maybe. I guess that would make sense.
I think
huh?
wildfire must have resistance to fire.
It's
If it
gotta,
doesn't,
right?
then that's weird.
To the same extent, though, I guess if you're turning into like a fire bear or like, I want to say fire pig because I'm thinking Tepig from Pokemon for some reason.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, that's awesome.
If you're turning into a Tepig, I mean, I know we're leaning into resistance, right? But wouldn't immunity be really fun? Wouldn't that be like really cool to be like a little phoenix and flying through the fire and scratching out the eyes of your enemy, getting that flyby ability later on?
I'm sure it would be fun, but immunity at 6th level is disgusting.
No, I get.
Immunity period is disgusting.
Yeah.
There's nothing that gives that except for like a invulnerability 9th level spell.
Yeah, no, that's true. I will say though, choosing your own elemental resistance, that's pretty strong for 6th level. I mean, you can pick the type of creature you want to be, and then if you're going up against, a blue dragon, you can pick lightning, and if you're going up a red dragon, fire, whatever.
I didn't think about
strong.
that. The ability to Pokemon it and make sure that you've got the right type for the gym that you're about to take on.
Oh, I feel like we're leaning into Pokemon here with D&D.
Just a little.
But moving on, because we're getting up in there in time, boys. We're definitely gonna have to leave the paladins for next time. Jumping into 10th level, your elemental strike. Elemental forces imbue your attacks right away. When I say that one sentence, you're gonna be thinking, if you've listened far enough into Critical Role Season 1, you're definitely thinking Keyleth with her fire tiger strikes that she had from that little firestone. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was very, very neat. But elemental forces imbue your attacks. When you deal damage with your bestial strike, the target takes an extra 1d6 damage of the type you chose from elemental wild shape. Not only that, but it increases to 2d6 at 17th level. I feel like, it takes a little while to get the 2d6, but again, you're not a fighter, you're not a barbarian, you're not meant to do that damage. But in the same sense, I talked about these druids being kind of a nerfed feel before. This Moon one feels pretty strong in combat, dealing the extra 1 to 2d6 elemental, being able to choose the element damage you actually deal, also getting that bonus action unarmed strike. At 5th level, you get, while you're wild shaped, you have multi-attacks. That's 3 attacks on your turn as a druid with extra elemental damage. So that's pretty strong, no? That feels pretty beefy.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I can't remember if it was specific to Circle of the Moon, but I'm noticing that we don't have any feature here that gives you magical damage for your wild shape. I don't think, right? That's not baked in or anything like that.
I don't remember reading that.
Yeah,
surely that's the case though. They wouldn't make you do physical damage in your form, no?
No, I'm pretty sure. I don't see anything that says that it deals magical damage. So in that case, you definitely want to be smart about what element you're picking to make sure you can overcome those resistances.
I hate to give misinformation to the viewers, but I really hope we're wrong about that, because I actually would hate that if they don't get magical.
Yeah, and that might be something to throw on to that 5th level feature.
Yeah, I think that would be reasonable. That would be fair.
Because the other thing is, as a druid, you're not getting magical weapons, so you're still you don't have a +1 bestial strike at any point. So that might be nice. Find some way to weave in a magic item that gives you some bonuses here. Because I do think that would be the one thing that keeps my druid from feeling like it's fully reached its maximum potential.
Yeah.
Is the fighter's got a +2 greatsword at 10th level, and I'm still doing my non-magical strikes, even if they're fiery at my choosing.
Yeah, and the idea that you threw out your hit point pool and your overcoming magical resistance, that seems a little oof. That's a little much for me right off the bat.
But maybe we'll see that they're taking away a lot of resistance to non-magical damage in the new monster manual. So maybe it won't matter as much as we think it does.
Maybe we're misreading something here, or we need some more information. But just to build on with the last little piece of this druid here, just to build on to the damage of this moon druid, at 14th level you get 1,000 forms. You've learned to use lunar magic to alter your physical form in innumerable ways. Innumerable is a cool word. You always have the alter self spell prepared, and you can cast it without expending a spell slot. Also, it's like a domain spell, so you have it ready all the time. Right off the bat, I think kind of underwhelming, because Alter Self is just a 2nd level spell that you're getting for a 14th level ability. But the cooler part of Alter Self, I believe, is the 3rd option, because you get one of 3 different options you can have. One's like you get gills. The other one is something else. I think you could change your appearance. And the third one gives you basically extra damage.
Yeah, it's like a natural weapon that you add to yourself. So you give yourself claws or whatever. I definitely think that that's cool. And there's probably a really cool way to work that into your wild shape somehow, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is exactly the way it was for Circle of the Moon of a certain level in the original PHP, though. So
it's okay, but to the same extent, at this level, it is very neat as a druid if you are taking the land form, which I believe gives you a D8 damage, right? So it would be a D8 plus 2d6 elemental damage of some sort, plus a d6 of your 1,000 forms. So a d8 plus 3d6 plus 5 is your wisdom mod. So that's reasonable, right? I would say that's almost fighter level at that point, although fighters can, of course, action surge, and they have their own sorts of abilities at that time. But I think that's pretty combat effective for a druid. I mean, it would take till 17th level to do it, but
yeah,
by that level, you would feel very Kung Fu Panda-esque, in and out of your wild shape, doing a good bit of damage. That's pretty neat. I do like it.
100%. And what I'll say is I don't know what's coming for the marshals, but from what we've seen from the Paladin, it does seem like we're kind of leaning in the direction where we're trying to power down the players a little bit. I guess clerics feel a bit more powerful. Rogues didn't feel that much weaker. Rangers were more or less at the same level. Bards were more or less at the same level. But I feel like with Paladins specifically, they've sort of most of it's still there, just to sort of tease you all for next time. But there are a couple things that just sort of make me grit my teeth and say, "Oh, I knew it was coming, but but why'd you have to do it?"
Yeah, I agree. And now that I'm thinking about it, and some of the previous classes we've discussed and the changes, they are definitely taking away those, I don't want to say powerful bits, but definitely the stronger pieces of those classes, right? Because the rogue can no longer sneak attack more than once per round, that kind of a thing. So sort of I feel like outlier is the right word, right? The outlier sorts of situations where you're doing oodles amounts of damage, or I won't say anything about the Paladin, but they're definitely powering that down. I would agree, which is weird because they've also mentioned that they're powering up the monsters, which I think is to be expected with all of the options. But maybe that's the angle they're taking, is because they're weakening us a little bit, giving us far more resources to use, so the monsters should be stronger. I guess that's fair. It's reasonable. I feel like I still need to see the rest of the subclasses, and especially some monster stat blocks to see how we kind of fare against these future creatures. So, very excited. Not sure where we're going with this, to be perfectly honest. I don't know. I want to see some more tweaks. I want to see what happens.
Yep. Lots of more stuff to talk about in this UA, but one thing that I want to talk about briefly, since we've just talked so much about druids, is another animal folk that we've gotten some news about. Not directly in this UA, but surrounding the previous Unearthed Arcana. The results are in, and Wizards has listened. They are taking the Ardling out of the player's handbook for 1D&D. I'm gonna say it. I'm very happy with the decision. Just listening to there was a video released a few days ago from Jeremy Crawford. Where he basically echoed my sentiments exactly, to where it seems like the Ardlings are a little out of place without like a good reason for them being there, and so they'll probably come back is what they've stated, but they won't be one of the default options, and so nothing more to say on that. I agree with the decision,
which is weird to think that they're putting it on the bench, so to say, because that makes me wonder what else have they talked about, or maybe not even mentioned to the fan base and just put off to the side. Do they have all these extra NPCs and classes and races just ready to go at a moment's notice? I'm genuinely curious about their bank of resources that they have. But to your point, I very much agree with the Ardling decision. I think they were neat, but similar to Warforged and Eberron, they kind of need a module or a setting or some sort of lore to go with them. Maybe they were very lore-based. I didn't read into them, completely in depth. I didn't do a full dissertation on them. I didn't write a paper. But, they're cool. They're neat. I'm excited to see where they come from in the future. But
Yeah, and another thing that they did remove, which nice thing, beautiful thing that they included in this UA is just the rules glossary change log. Down at the bottom here, they mentioned the jump action has been revoked, which in the previous Unearthed Arcana they had jumping as a action that you take on your turn. Now that's gone, so it's back to being part of your move, which I think is the right call. And then the slowed condition as well, they've axed. So it's nice to see that there are some things that are are taking shape, and they're listening to our feedback. Though it sounds like the Dragonborn that gets flight is probably here to stay. Maybe we'll see. And then also the Elemental Goliath also got a lot of positive feedback.
Yes.
So looking forward to seeing more of that.
Give me more giants. I want more giants.
Yeah, and there's a giant book coming up, so I imagine we're probably gonna see something to do with Elemental Goliaths in that book. Why else bring it up?
Well, I don't know if you've heard about, speaking of giants, there's a giant in our area. It's actually Good Old Gamer. Good Old Gamer is a giant of a man. He's doing great. We love Good Old Gamer here on the D&D Table Talk podcast. Give him a little shout out. Love me some Good Old Gamer. But at the end of our episode, I guess I'll be Seth here again with a tear in my eye and a little quiver in my voice. Thank you for listening to a Table Talk Friday, a D&D podcast. You can find us right here. And of course, please, please, please go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Table Talk Friday, where you'll find excellent patrons like Good Old Gamer. Hop on in there, send some comments, see what's going on. You'll find some extra footage like our post show that we're about to record right now, as well as getting some of our episodes a week early. So go ahead and check it out. And I guess as we close out here, Zach, can I have... Oh gosh, what? I need a good one.
Drew the Druid? I'm so glad you asked.
Can I have Drew the Druid take us out?
Hey guys, it's me, Drew the Druid. I'm the character that Drew would play if he were a druid, but since he doesn't like playing druids, I guess I'll just stay in my cave. Anyway, I'm so honored that Zach and Drew, and definitely not Seth, would ask me to close out this episode. So anyway, I guess I'll close out this episode with a quick joke. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who?
Knock knock.
Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me, Zach.
Have a good night, everyone.